Every day, exactly at 5 in the afternoon, he would sit there, and no one knew why. Evergreen, Vermont. An old cemetery, surrounded by centuries-old trees, where time seemed to stand still. Among tombstones worn down by wind and rain, there was a white marble bench. Cold, unmoving, as if waiting for someone. And he came. Always. An old man in a dark suit, with a worn wooden cane and eyes far too deep to be just eyes. They were abysses. His wrinkles were carved not only by time but by sorrow. His name was Walter Howard, and he never missed a day. Not on sunny afternoons, not in storms. He would sit, place a small pocket watch on his knee, and stay there. 40 minutes. Exactly. Every single day. But what intrigued people the most was where he looked. In front of the bench, there was a grave, a nameless grave, only a date, October 14th, 1993, no flowers, no details, just silence. And while the town carried on with its life, he remained there, unmoving, as if waiting for something, or someone, to return. On the other side of the rusty gate, a young man watched, camera in hand, eyes sharp. Caleb Turner, a newly arrived photographer, was searching for real stories, different stories, and he had found something he couldn't explain. "Who's that old man?" he asked the cemetery groundskeeper. The man wiped his hands on a dirty rag, looked toward the bench, and answered in a low voice. "That's Mr. Howard. He's been coming here every day for over 30 years, and he's never told anyone why." Caleb narrowed his eyes, puzzled. "Whose grave is he visiting?" The groundskeeper shrugged. "No one knows. There's never been a name on that headstone." Silence. The wind blew, stirring up dry leaves that danced at the feet of the old man on the bench. Mr. Howard didn't move. Through Caleb's zoom lens, he captured a strange moment. The old man reached into his pocket. It looked like a photograph. He kissed the image, closed his eyes, and a single tear rolled down his cheek. Caleb felt a chill down his spine. Who was the person in that photo, and why was that single date so important to him? The sun began to dip behind the trees. The old man slowly stood, as if carrying an entire world on his shoulders, and walked toward the gate. He stopped beside Caleb without saying a single word, but looked him straight in the eyes, a look that said, "You're not ready to know." And then he walked away. Caleb, heart racing, knew one thing for sure. That story was hiding something big, much bigger than he could imagine. And he was going to uncover the truth, no matter what it cost. Some stories don't want to be told, but this one seemed to beg to be uncovered. Caleb Turner couldn't sleep that night. The image of that solitary man sitting in front of a nameless grave played over and over in his mind, like a cursed film that refuses to end. Yes, he was a photographer, but more than that, he was a storyteller, and he knew when a picture carried a mystery. And that scene screamed for answers. The next morning, before the sun had even risen, he was back at Evergreen Cemetery with his camera hanging from his neck and determination in his eyes. The air was cold, and the fog still covered the tombstones, like a mourning veil. Mr. Howard hadn't arrived yet. Caleb stepped closer to the grave. He read again the only thing carved into it. October 14th, 1993. That was it. No name, no phrase. Just a date that felt like it had frozen time. "Who are you?" he whispered to the silent granite. Suddenly, slow footsteps. The tap of a cane on the ground. Mr. Howard. Exactly at 5 o'clock, like a human clock, he sat on the marble bench just as he always did. Ignored Caleb, as if he didn't exist. But Caleb wasn't about to give up. He took a deep breath, walked a few steps, and slowly approached. "Sir, I'm sorry to bother you. My name is Caleb. I'm a photographer, working on a project about real-life stories. I saw you here yesterday, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it." Silence. Mr. Howard didn't move, but after a few seconds, without looking at him, he said, "Then stop thinking." The response was dry, harsh, but there was something in it. Something broken. An old pain hidden behind the rough tone. Caleb hesitated, but continued. "I don't want to exploit your pain, sir. But sometimes, telling can set us free. I just wanted to understand." Mr. Howard finally looked at him. His eyes were like two dark wells, Too deep, too tired. Understand? He repeated. No one understands. Everyone judged. Everyone forgot. But I remember. Every single day. Caleb felt the weight of that sentence. It was as if the words carried decades of suffering. The old man took something out of his jacket pocket, a small, time-worn photo. It was of a smiling little girl next to a blonde woman. Both of them looked happy, alive. This is my daughter, and this, my wife. Caleb swallowed hard. Are they? Mr. Howard closed his eyes and tucked the photo away before answering. Not anymore. Silence again. Caleb wanted to ask more, but something inside him said it wasn't the right time. Thank you for showing me that, he said, taking a step back. If you ever feel like talking, I'll be around. As he turned to leave, Mr. Howard murmured, That grave doesn't hold a body. It holds the day my life ended. Caleb froze. Goosebumps ran down his spine. He turned around, but the old man was already staring intently at the gravestone, as if he had slipped back into the past. And that was when Caleb made up his mind. He was going to find out what happened on October 14th, 1993, even if he had to dig up every ghost in the entire town to do it. What he didn't know is that some stories want to stay buried. Sometimes a single day can destroy everything we spend a lifetime building. Caleb dug through archives, called old local newspapers, and even tried speaking with City Hall employees. But no one seemed to know what happened on October 14th, 1993. No headlines, no recorded accident, no news. It was as if the day had been erased from the town's history. But then, he found a clue. At the municipal library, buried among dusty newspapers and forgotten boxes, Caleb discovered an issue of the Evergreen Times, dated October 15th, 1993. Tucked away in the lower corner of the last page, almost without notice, was a small paragraph. House fire in Northwood neighborhood contained. No bodies found. Locals prefer not to comment. A fire. No victims. No explanations, but something felt off. A blurry photo next to the article showed a house engulfed in flames. And right in front of it, a man on his knees, wearing a suit, crying. Caleb zoomed in as far as he could. It was Mr. Howard. His heart raced. Back at the cemetery, Caleb waited. Mr. Howard arrived, just as he always did, at 5 o'clock sharp, sat down, stayed silent. But that day, Caleb didn't just observe, he approached with the newspaper photo in hand. I found this, he said softly. Is this the house? Mr. Howard looked at the image, fell silent for a long moment. And for the first time, he spoke about the past. Northwood Street, number 27. That was our home. My wife used to bake apple pies on Fridays. My daughter would draw all over the backyard with colored chalk. And what happened that day? Caleb asked, barely above a whisper. The old man took a deep breath. His eyes shimmered with moisture, but he didn't take them off the gravestone. I was late. Worked overtime. My wife called, said she heard strange noises. Thought someone had broken in. I told her to lock the doors, that I'd be home in 10 minutes. Pause. When I turned the corner, I saw the smoke rising. The house was already on fire. Caleb felt his stomach twist. And they were inside. Mr. Howard shook his head slowly, his eyes distant. There were no bodies, no sign of them, nothing. Just my daughter's dress, burned, caught on the front fence. Caleb stood frozen. But if there were no bodies, what does that mean? Someone took them? They escaped? Mr. Howard closed his eyes, took a deep breath. I don't know. No one knows. None of the neighbors saw anything. Police said maybe they tried to flee through the woods, but nothing was ever found. No tracks. No footprints. Then, why the grave? The old man touched the gravestone with his fingertips gently. Because even without bodies, that was the day my life ended. I buried everything here, and I come back every day, hoping they'll find me. Caleb swallowed hard. There were no words to answer that. But then, something happened. Across the cemetery, a woman in a black hat stood near a tree, watching them. When she realized Caleb had seen her, she turned away and disappeared among the gravestones. Caleb furrowed his brow. Do you know that woman? Mr. Howard turned, but it was too late. She was gone. And in that instant, Caleb felt the story was just beginning, and someone else knew everything. The worst prison has no bars. It's made of memories and eyes that never forget. That night, Caleb couldn't get the woman in the black hat out of his mind, the one who had been watching them at the cemetery. She wasn't there by chance. Her gaze was too fixed, her posture too restrained. Someone like that doesn't visit the dead. She watches them. The next day, Caleb returned to Evergreen Cemetery, this time with a hidden camera in his jacket pocket and a folder full of notes. Mr. Howard was already on the marble bench, motionless as ever, like a human statue shaped by sorrow. But something felt different that day. A group of 3 people stood at a distance. A man in a dark suit, a stern-looking woman, and a young man holding a notebook. They whispered to one another, eyes locked on Mr. Howard like they were gathering evidence. Caleb approached one of the cemetery groundskeepers. "Who are they?" The man hesitated, then answered. "They're from the community, people who never got over the disappearance of Howard's wife and daughter. They say it was him who—" He stopped. Caleb felt a knot twist in his stomach. "They say he killed them, right?" The man nodded, his eyes heavy. "There was never any proof. But you know how it is. Sometimes people don't need evidence, just a story they're willing to believe." Caleb looked at Mr. Howard. The old man just stared at the gravestone, ignoring the stairs, ignoring everything. But inside, it showed. He was being judged, every single day, in silence, by people who never forgave him for something he might never have done. Later that day, Caleb dug deeper into the archives and found what he had already suspected. Mr. Howard had been investigated back in 1993. The police considered the possibility that he had staged the fire to cover up a crime, but nothing was proven. Witnesses had seen him at work late that night. His alibi was solid, but the doubt remained, and like an open wound, it never healed. That night, Caleb went to the neighborhood where the burned-down house once stood. Northwood Street felt frozen in time. House number 27 was boarded up, abandoned. But the neighbors still remembered. An elderly woman, Mrs. Wheeler, came to the door. "Are you talking about Mr. Howard? That man? He paid for something. I just don't know if it was guilt or grief. Do you believe he did anything?" She hesitated, then murmured, "No, but you know what's worse than being guilty? It's when no one knows, and still, everyone condemns you." Caleb said nothing. Mr. Howard's trial never happened in a courtroom. It happened in the town square, at the grocery store, at church, in the eyes of his neighbors. And it was still happening. But then, something unexpected. As Caleb returned to his car, he spotted a brown envelope tucked under the windshield wiper. No sender, no signature. Inside, a single photograph. It was the little girl from Mr. Howard's photo, but older. It couldn't be. She looked around 18 in the image, and the date in the bottom corner read, 2008. They were alive. Caleb flipped the photo over. On the back, a handwritten message. "Before you judge, uncover what you've never seen." And in that instant, everything shifted. The story that seemed to be about mourning might actually be about escape. And Mr. Howard might be far more than a lonely widower. But then, why had someone hidden the truth for so many years? And who was the veiled woman watching from afar? In silence? Caleb didn't know yet. But he was about to enter the most dangerous part of the story. Some ghosts don't wear sheets. They wear black hats and walk silently among the living. It was late afternoon when Caleb returned to the cemetery, but this time, Mr. Howard wasn't there. For the first time in weeks, the marble bench was empty. The air felt colder than usual, the sky darker than the hour allowed. And then he saw her, the woman in the black veil, standing near the forest that surrounds the cemetery, motionless, watching. This time, Caleb decided to act. He walked across the gravestones without taking his eyes off her. But like a game of mirrors, with each step he took, she stepped back. Until, without saying a word, she turned and disappeared into the woods. Caleb hesitated for a second. But something inside him screamed, "Follow." The trail was narrow, covered in dry leaves and broken branches. The sound of crows echoed above, and the cold breeze seemed to whisper names he didn't want to hear. But he kept going. Over half an hour walking until he saw a cabin. Old, forgotten by time. Its windows covered with dark cloth, and on the porch, her. "I knew you'd come," the woman said in a low, almost raspy voice. Caleb stopped. His heart was pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. "Who are you? Why are you following me? Why do you watch Mr. Howard?" She slowly removed the veil. She was a woman around 60, light skin marked by time, eyes carrying sorrow, but also guilt. "My name is Margaret Elkins." "Should I know who you are?" Caleb asked, suspicious. She nodded with regret. I used to be Mr. Howard's daughter's nanny." Silence. "That night, were you in the house?" Margaret hesitated. She sat on a wooden bench on the porch. Her voice trembled. "I was supposed to be, but I left earlier. I had a bad feeling. Something about that night felt wrong. Very wrong." "And what happened?" "I saw a man. A car parked in front of the house just before the fire started. He was wearing a dark coat, and..." She stopped, closed her eyes. "And I saw the little girl get into the car before the house went up in flames." Caleb felt the ground disappear beneath him. That changed everything. "Did you tell the police?" "No, I was afraid. Afraid of who was behind it. Afraid of what they might do to me. Afraid of the truth." "So you let Mr. Howard be accused for 30 years? "I hid, but I always came back, always watched, because someone had to know when it was time to tell the truth." Caleb stood up, furious but confused. "So they're alive?" Margaret looked at him slowly. Her eyes shimmered with held-back tears. "The wife? I don't know. But the girl?" "What? Tell me!" "She came back 5 years ago." Caleb took a step back. "What do you mean? Where is she?" Margaret hesitated. "She's here, in town." Caleb was stunned. He couldn't process it. Did she see her father?" "No, she watched him, like I did. She doesn't know. If he deserves to know. If he deserves forgiveness." Caleb was speechless. The whole world was spinning around him. "And where is she now?" Margaret stood up. Went inside the cabin. When she came back, she handed Caleb a white envelope with a single phrase. "You will find her when you're ready to hear everything." In the lower corner of the envelope, a name handwritten. Elise. Caleb's eyes widened. "Elise? That's Mr. Howard's daughter's name." Margaret nodded slowly. "But she doesn't use that name anymore." "What name does she go by now?" Margaret looked him in the eyes. "She's closer to you than you think." "What do you mean?" Margaret turned toward the forest, as if she heard something. "You need to leave now. Some voices from the past don't whisper. They scream for justice." Night had fallen when Caleb arrived at his small apartment. His hands were still trembling as he held the envelope Margaret had left him. At the table, silence reigned. The only sound was the ticking of the clock. He opened the envelope carefully, as if unlocking a time capsule that should never have been touched. Inside was a letter. Handwritten, with firm, intense strokes. But what caught his attention most was the necklace taped to the paper. A small crescent moon pendant, worn out, yet familiar. Caleb froze. The letter read, "My name is Elise, but you know me by another name. I didn't die in that fire, but the girl I was disappeared that day. Don't blame Mr. Howard. He was innocent. The guilt lies with another man. If you want to know everything, go to the old music school studio tomorrow at 10 a.m., but come alone, or no one will ever hear the truth." Caleb's heart pounded. He picked up the necklace. That pendant. He had seen it before. The next morning, the studio was covered in dust and silence. It was an abandoned building behind a school that had been shut down over a decade ago. Broken windows let in crooked beams of light. Each of Caleb's steps echoed like a nervous drum. Then, she appeared, wearing a gray hoodie and carrying a look too heavy with memories for someone her age. "Elise?" Caleb asked, almost breathless. She pulled down the hood, and in the instant her face was revealed, Caleb froze. "No. It can't be you." It was Emma, the volunteer at the nursing home, the cheerful girl who brought flowers to forgotten elders, the same one who had taken a photo with Mr. Howard on Caleb's first day at the cemetery. "That's why you were there. From the very beginning," Caleb murmured. Emma, or Elise, nodded, eyes filled with tears. I needed to see if he still remembered me, if he still waited for me. Why didn't you ever tell the truth? She hesitated, took a deep breath, then said something that shattered Caleb inside. Because he gave me away to another family. Silence. What? Do you mean? My father, Mr. Howard. He found out my mother was involved in something dangerous with a man who wanted to use our home for money laundering. When he threatened to expose him, that man planned the fire. But my dad, he snuck me out in the middle of the night, left me with a couple who owed him a favor, said it was to protect me, that he'd come back for me. And he never did? Caleb asked, voice shaking. He was arrested that same day. Caleb covered his mouth. So he sacrificed himself to save you. And paid for a crime he didn't commit. But why didn't you tell anyone? She stepped closer. Her eyes burned. Because the man who ordered the fire is still out there. Caleb felt a chill down his spine. Who was it? Emma trembled. I know his name. And you know it too. She opened her backpack and pulled out an old cassette tape. This recording is a phone call made a week before the fire. In it, my mother talks with the real mastermind. And he's still out there, pretending to be a good man. Who? Caleb nearly shouted, but before she could answer, a gunshot echoed outside. Emma went pale. They found us. Caleb rushed to the window. A black car was parked on the street. Tinted windows. Engine running. We have to get out of here, he yelled. Emma shoved the tape into Caleb's pocket. Protect this with your life. They ran out the back of the building down a rusted side staircase. More gunshots. One of them hit the wall just inches from Caleb. This was real. Too real. Hiding in an alley, Caleb looked at Emma. They're trying to silence you. Not just me, Caleb. What do you mean? Then Emma revealed. There are more victims. More buried stories. My father isn't the only innocent one. They destroyed. Caleb swallowed hard. What started with a man sitting on a marble bench was turning into something much bigger, far more dangerous. And then, for the first time, Emma whispered the name of the man behind it all. Arthur Whitman. Caleb went pale. Arthur Whitman was the current district attorney, the same man Caleb had interviewed 3 months ago for a documentary on justice ethics. Caleb looked at the tape in his pocket. If this is true, I hold the key to freeing Mr. Howard, but also the key to starting a war. And in that moment, he knew whatever came next would change everything, forever. Before finding the truth, Caleb would have to find the one person who should have never disappeared. The streets felt colder that morning. The sky was gray, as if announcing that something terrible was about to happen. Caleb walked quickly, the cassette tape stuffed in his pocket, and the name Arthur Whitman echoing in his head like a cursed bell. Emma had vanished right after the ambush at the school. And now, he was alone. Alone, with a recording that could bring down the most powerful name in the county. But something still bothered him, something Mr. Howard had said without saying, hidden between the lines of his silences, in the long stares at the ground, in the flowers, laid every day on the same nameless grave. That girl, the girl from the grave, wasn't Emma. Caleb went to the city registry office. Pretending to be a history student, he asked for access to old adoption records dating back to 1995, the year of the fire. The clerk hesitated, but Caleb knew how to use the right words. I'm working on a documentary, and this case could save the life of an innocent man. After 2 hours digging through dusty files, he found something strange. A sealed record, with a court order to conceal the identity of the minor adopted on September 3, 1995. Name of the minor, E. Whitman. Caleb froze. Whitman? No. It couldn't be a coincidence. Hours later, he was in the old Whitman neighborhood. Luxurious, quiet, impenetrable. Wearing a cap and dark sunglasses, he tried to blend in until he spotted the mansion. Tall gates, cameras, and a surgically trimmed garden. He hid behind a bush as a black car slowly backed out of the garage. And that's when he saw her. A young woman, with features similar to Emma's, but younger. Brown hair tied in a flawless bun. Her expression was serene, trained. Caleb snapped a photo. And when he zoomed in on the camera screen, he saw what he needed, the same crescent moon necklace hanging around her neck. My God, that's not Emma. That's Mr. Howard's real daughter. The tape wasn't just an expose. It was proof of a kidnapping. Caleb rushed to his car and called Emma. Pick up, pick up. But a male voice answered, cold, controlled. Mr. Caleb Harris, I thought you were smarter. Silence. Who is this? Let's just say I'm the one responsible for keeping the past buried. Caleb froze. Where's Emma? The girl? Oh, she's with us, but you don't need to worry about that. If you touch a single hair on her head, I swear, she's fine for now. But if you show that tape, she disappears. And so does Howard's real daughter. Caleb was in shock. You knew all along. Of course I did. Because I'm the one who erased the records, and I'm the one who took her from that house. The line went dead. Caleb stood still, eyes locked on. The photo of the young woman on the camera screen. Mr. Howard's real daughter was alive, but she had grown up as a Whitman, as the daughter of the very man who destroyed her father's life. And then, like lightning, it all made sense. Arthur Whitman didn't destroy Mr. Howard's life by accident. He stole his daughter and raised her as his own, and buried Emma's real identity, forever. Caleb dropped to his knees. My God, Mr. Howard goes to the cemetery every day, to mourn the daughter who's still alive. He stood up, eyes burning. This won't end like this. But before he could take another step, a black car turned the corner and sped toward him. Caleb ran but slipped on the curb and fell. The camera flew from his hands. Two men in suits stepped out of the car. Mr. Harris, your time is up. But in that moment, something unexpected happened. A hooded figure appeared. The truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it shatters what's left of what was once whole. The cemetery was silent as always. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple. There he was, as every day, Mr. Howard, sitting on the same marble bench with his hat in his lap and his eyes lost on the nameless tombstone. But this time, something would be different. In the distance, quick footsteps. Caleb and Emma approached in silence. The sound of gravel under their feet seemed to amplify the weight of every decision. Emma stopped, took a deep breath, and walked alone to the man she loved so much, and who had never known the full truth. Father. Howard turned slowly, his eyes widening as if seeing a ghost. Emma? She knelt before him. I'm not who you think I am. Silence. Caleb approached with the camera in hand. The tape was ready. The revealing audio of Arthur Whitman was there. The entire plot of kidnapping, record forgery, and illegal adoption. Howard's real daughter had grown up under another name. Unaware of everything, Howard placed his hand on his heart. He began to tremble. So, you're not my daughter? Emma swallowed hard, her eyes misty. I was raised to be. But biologically, no. Still, you were the only father I ever knew. Howard took a moment, then stood with difficulty. He looked at the tombstone, looked at Emma, and cried. For the first time in all those years, he cried for real. So, she's alive? Caleb nodded. Yes, she's alive. But she was raised as Arthur Whitman's daughter. She doesn't know who she really is. Howard squinted. A whirlwind of pain and love collided inside him. So I lost both. Hours later, the three were sitting in Howard's old house. Caleb had uploaded the video to the cloud, but had not published it yet. If this goes public, the Whitman family will be destroyed. But the truth will come to light. Emma hesitated. Maybe she doesn't need to know. Maybe it's better to spare her from all of this. Howard stared intently at the lit fireplace. The truth isn't for the weak, Emma, but silence also kills from the inside. He stood up, grabbed a yellowed envelope from the shelf and handed it to Caleb. This is the original will. The true name of my daughter is here, with the original birth certificate, and a photo of her on the day of the fire. Caleb opened it, read, and widened his eyes. The name wasn't what he expected. Mr. Howard, is this correct? Howard nodded slowly. It is. Her name was Emily June Carter. Silence. Caleb felt the ground disappear beneath him. He fell onto the couch, looked at Emma, and couldn't hide the truth for another second. Emma, your birth name is also Carter? Emma swallowed hard. Her eyes lit up as if something had been ignited inside her. Yes, my mother always said it was a symbolic name, that it meant survivor. Caleb took a step back. So, Howard's daughter is you. Emma froze. Howard was paralyzed. What? Caleb pulled out the will, took a photo that Howard had kept, and pulled from his pocket the broken pendant Emma always wore around her neck. It fit perfectly with the half in the photo. 2 crescent moons, 2 halves of a broken necklace. Emma collapsed to her knees. I am his daughter. Howard crumpled onto the couch, his hands shaking. They gave you another name. They hid you from me. All along, Emma cried silently. So, all this time, I was here, by your side. And Howard, with a choked voice, opened his arms. And I never stopped waiting for you. She ran to him. They hugged tightly. And there, in the silence of that old house, something that had never died was finally restored. Caleb went out to the garden, tears in his eyes. The video was ready to be posted. But now, he knew what to do. He wouldn't post it for fame, not for justice. He would post it for love. For the love of a father who had been robbed, and for a daughter who had been found. And then, with one last click, he uploaded the video to the world. Title: The Daughter Time Hid, the truth about the Howard versus Whitman case. What if you discovered that everything you were searching for had always been by your side, hidden behind an old pain? Comment below. Would you have the courage to seek the truth, even if it changed everything? If this story touched your heart, share it with someone you love. Sometimes the truth can also be a reunion, and if you enjoy real and emotional stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because in the next one, what's buried might be more than just memories.